Welcome back to Bell, Ohio, and in today's video, I'm excited to talk to you about my 2023 race plans. So for 2023, I've decided to attack the entire Ohio gravel race series. As gravel's become more popular over the past few years, the race coordinators and event planners in Ohio have grouped together all of the Ohio gravel races and turned them into a series. So from across the course of the year, between May and October, you can accumulate points from one event to the next to try to become the series champion. Those points are dictated by how many people are riding in the qualified races, usually, which is the longest event offered in those races, and then how well you stack up, how well you finish against the field. You'll have to forgive me for not committing them all to memory, but in order, starting in May, we have the Black Fork Gravel Grinder, followed by Baitin' the Shark, Funk Bottoms Gravel, Ohio's toughest gravel grinder, then the Athens Gravel Challenge, the McLean Farm Adventure Race, Magnolia Gravel Galore, the GPS 100, and then finally Ride on Jeremy's Ride, which will be October 14th. Most of these races are a mix of gravel and road, but a couple of those are actually going to involve some single track as well. Which brings me to kind of the point of this video, is to talk about some optimizations that I wanted to make to my gravel race bike in order to be a little bit more competitive this year. I'm going to break this down into a three-part series, but in part one of this optimization video series, I wanted to talk about why I wanted to add gravel bars to my bike and how I went about doing it and adjusting my computer mount so that it would be compatible with the Aero bars. So check out this video on me adding some Aero bars to the gravel bike and my justification for doing so.
So this year, regarding my cockpit, I'm looking to make some optimizations that will allow me to have a good finishing time, not just going to the race for a good time overall. So one thing I did want to include this year would be the addition of Aero bars to my gravel bike setup. Now, Aero bars are completely legal. It's not a UCI regulated event. Some would argue that Aero bars are not within the spirit of gravel, and I can understand that from a safety perspective. If you're riding in the group, in the bunch, if you're drafting off others, you definitely should not be in your Aero bars. But there have been plenty of calculations done specifically around unbound gravel and just how much time can be saved using Aero bars. It's not just getting your body low like you'd be able to do with the drops, but it's about getting your body narrow as well. So over a 200-mile unbound gravel race, where you could be on the drops for about 25% of that race, being in Aero bars would save you about 20 minutes. If we scale that back to these 100K distance races that you tend to find in Ohio, that's still going to save you about 5 or 6 minutes. Interestingly enough, there's a penalty associated with having Aero bars on your bike if you're not in them, so you could expect to subtract maybe 30 to 45 seconds over the course of those 60 miles just because of the fact that you're not on your Aero bars the whole time. But still, for me, 5 or 6 minutes, it's going to be worth it in the grand scheme of things. So, what am I looking for from Aero bars that I'm going to be using on a gravel bike that might be different from what I would be using on a road bike or a time trial bike? If you guys saw my recent video about the dual position seat post, I made a big deal about needing to alter the geometry of your seat tube angle in order to adjust for those Aero bars. The reason being, most of the time, your Aero bar pads are going to be squarely over the tops of your base bar here. With these Aero bars, you can see that the padding is pretty well set back from the clamp, which is going to put the pad far closer to my body than would be on a traditional Aero bar setup. That means that I'm not going to have to get my body as far forward, with the shift of that dual position seat post in order to get my elbows comfortably here on the pad. One other reservation I had about using Aero bars is that I didn't want to lose the utility of putting my hands on my tops. So these pads are really going to spread very minimally laterally. When I compare them to the Aero bars that are on my time trial bike, even in the narrowest position that I can get those, these still are about 3 centimeters narrower on each side, so 6 centimeters narrower across the span of both of these. Now, one other implication of how far back set these are is that when you're out of the saddle and climbing, it is possible to bump your knees on the Aero bar pads. But again, because they're set so narrow, I don't think that's going to be a problem. So these are bars that I'm going to be able to live with, that when I'm not on them, hopefully I'm not going to even know that they're there. One other aspect that drew me to these bars is the 35-degree upsweep at the grip. It's something that just really ergonomically fits into my arm where I don't have to go through a whole lot of ulnar deviation to grasp that handle. Now with my trusty Brighton computer, I'm no longer going to be able to use the mount for that computer that I've been using in the past. For one thing, it's a good, I don't know, 1.5 centimeters across the mounting point. And like I said, I want to get those Aero bars set as narrow as I can, basically right up to the stem. Now I know that's not a whole lot of space, but every little bit of space makes a difference as far as the usability of using my tops and then for aerodynamics as well. The other problem is that when I get those Aero bars set in and I lay this computer in that mount beside them, I'm going to lose functionality of these buttons on the side because it's going to be wedged in between my Aero bars. So I need a solution for a computer mount. Now luckily these can be found all over the internet. I went through a company, ZTTO, who actually makes my favorite handlebar tape. And the configuration of the mount is such that you attach it to the bottom of your stem directly into the stem bolts. Now functionally for me, what that does is it sets the computer below the height of the Aero bars so that I'll actually kind of be able to sneak in underneath the sides of the Aero bars in order to function, pressing the buttons and then even mounting and dismounting the computer. So let's see if this is compatible. Let's get this bolted onto the bike and then we'll go from there. So thankfully the thread pitch is the same, so I'm going to be able to use the supplied bolts. The last time I did this on the Cannondale Cat 10, I had to kind of recreate the hardware that they gave me from the local hardware store, but this should be just kind of plug and play, ready to go. So they supply you with these really long stem bolts that have this little bit of a hard plastic housing. The idea behind that is because this is a convex structure, in order to get the computer mount attached, it's not going to be able to sit flush back here. It's actually going to have to get moved away from the stem faceplate, just that little bit. All right, so that has been attached. Now I haven't actually put the unique Brighton adapter in there, but you can get a good idea of what I've been describing here of how that now sits below the faceplate. So now I'm going to go ahead and install the Brighton computer specific mount on top, and then the accessory mount on the bottom, which I tend to use for my GoPro, but you can also use it for a headlight or something like that, any other accessory that's compatible with that 3-prong action camera mount. So I've got the Brighton computer specific adapter on top. I've got the action camera mount at the bottom. You can see how that all works and plays nicely together. I am going to try to sneak these Aero bars in as narrow as possible, and this Brighton 530 is a computer that I've been using for 4 years now. I love it to pieces. One thing that it falls short on is that it doesn't have any sort of turn-by-turn direction functionality. It kind of has a breadcrumb turn-by-turn directionality, and that's gotten me in trouble in the past, specifically at the Bait and the Shark race, where there was kind of a figure 8 section. So as I crossed that section for the second time, it thought I was back at the beginning of the race and was trying to tell me where to go at mile 20, not at mile 50. So I did go for an upgrade this year. I stuck with Brighton. I now have the Brighton Rider 750. For the purposes of the Aero bars, it's actually going to be a little bit of an upgrade. It's a solid, I don't know, 1.5 centimeters narrower. It's just going to buy me that little bit of extra real estate to actually get this on here and then still be able to use these side buttons and have a little functionality there. So I'm going to use this new computer as that space holder as I set the Aero bars in here, just to make sure that I can use this computer and all of its functionality. At the end of the day, it does also have touchscreen function to it. If you want a full review, I'm sure that DC Rainmaker is going to do a better job than my COVID voice right now. But I can't wait to see how this computer works out. I'm excited to get these Aero bars on here just to get a new look at what the face of my bike is going to look like. All right, so I've got the first Aero bar on. If that was as boring for you guys to watch as it was for me to install, I'm just going to do a little magic trick here on the second one. All right, well that was easier. Beyond the functionality of actually being able to press those buttons, I sort of forgot the bigger problem. So what I have found is that the preferred angle of my Aero bars to be about 25 degrees up in the air from the horizontal plane is about what is necessary to actually sneak that underneath and have enough clearance. But it does work. It sits very nicely in between, and I guess although it'll be a little bit of a faff just to get it in and out, I'm pretty happy with how this cockpit is shaping up here. And then, like I said, I'm still going to have the functionality to hang my GoPro or Night Rider headlight there as well.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that installation video. Like I said, it's probably going to save me something like 6 to 10 minutes over the course of 100K, which for me could definitely bump me up a few places and keep me more competitive. If you want to stick around and find out what I do in my next optimization video, I'll be releasing that shortly. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you in the next one.